Hi, Flosstube. It's Arlene here. I'm here on Sunday, October 1st. It's been over 2 weeks since I was here, but I'm glad to be back today. I'm nearing the end of a cold, so I sound funny to myself. I don't know if I'm going to sound funny to you, but I'm at the place where like my ears feel funny. I was going to try and do this yesterday, but I was still in that drippy nose stage. But I'm better today. But if you, I don't know, in your work lives, the worst day of it for me was on Friday when I didn't go to school prepared for this, and I had to use the tissues that are at school. And they're lousy, crappy tissues. And so because of that, my nose hurts so bad because otherwise I would have brought my own box of tissues. All this to say, that's where I am right now. If you're coming back, welcome back. I feel like in the last week or so, I've had more than the typical number of people say, hey, I've just found you, and more than the typical number of comments on older videos. So if you're new, welcome. Thank you for coming and joining me. I can't tell you how much comments have meant to me, particularly on the last video, and you all are so kind, and this Flosstube world is so supportive, and it's why we all love it. And I just needed to start with that piece and just saying that has meant an awful lot to me. I try my best to leave comments when I'm watching videos because, again, it's what matters to me a lot as well. So I'm just going to jump in on my list here. I don't know about many of you, but this week for me has been, in a very good way, had a lot of stitching pieces in it that weren't typical. And I'm going to start with the McKenna and Michelle extravaganza from Stitcher's Paradise. I know that a number of us were tuning in. They were there on Tuesday and Wednesday of this past week, whatever time zone you were in, whether it was night or morning or middle of the night for you. They were doing a live feed through Instagram, and it was so much fun. It was seeing two of our Flosstube friends that we normally just see in this screen world, which in some ways is so wonderful because we get to know one another, and in some ways is this static because we are just talking to our screens and no one's answering back. And yes, on occasion there have been live YouTube videos and there's been those little moments, but for me it was really a special thing to see that and to be a part of that and to see the interactions going on with people who were asking them to pull aside charts or show me that model on the wall. And it was a lot of fun. When I get to showing you some stitching, the piece I was trying to work on, I literally had needle in hand. There was no stitching going on. There was needle in hand as I was watching a screen because it was amazing to watch. And so, you know, I'm thinking a lot about those of you that are getting ready to gather in Austin. I don't know if anyone's mentioned how large that gathering is. I know the Minneapolis one is about 40 people. I don't know if the Austin one is about that same size. I feel like I've heard a number of Flosstubers mention they're looking forward. Austin's coming up. So I know there's going to be a number of us thinking about that in-person gathering this coming weekend. And then I just need to address this. I'm not going to wait till later on in my video because a number of you saw a post that I did on Stitch Mania, and I put it on my Instagram as well, and I've had some messages about it, so I just want to share it because it was also very much a part of my week this week. I stopped at a library that's near my school, one that I go to pretty regularly when I need to kill some time or whatever. And I just hadn't been there in a couple weeks. And I ran into the most amazing thing. There were a whole bunch, thousands of charts and patterns that were there. And they were, in effect, donated to the library to be sold. Sold is a very loose word because the sign said 10 cents each, which is to say, give a donation. And it didn't take me more than a minute to kind of process and think about, what is this? There was a store that was my local store for most of the years I lived here in New Jersey. From the time I moved to New Jersey until when they closed, and I can date that to about 2010, so about 7 years ago. It's a husband and wife that owned it. It was a framing business. My memory of their story is they bought the framing business from somebody else, and however long they owned it, at some point, at the point that I moved and knew them, the joke was, we have our business and her hobby and his hobby, because they also ran, well, the needlework piece became huge, a lot of cross stitch, mostly cross stitch, but they also had canvas work and like hand painted canvases, needlepoint. And then there was a period of time where it was a whole home brew, like beer brewing business. Like, I don't know what's involved in that, but that was his hobby. Cross stitch was her hobby. And the home brew stuff, I don't know how many years they kept that up, but I know that that existed when I first started visiting. That disappeared. They sold off all their stuff of that. And the cross stitch stuff built bigger and bigger. And so they were a framing business. They framed a lot of the things that I have showed that have been professionally framed, were framed by them right there. She was a stitcher. They knew how to do everything right. And I will say that I grew up as a stitcher in that store. It wasn't, they didn't have a table out. It wasn't a gathering place. I hear, like when Pam and Steph talk about their store, and I imagine what kind of gathering place that is. And even Needleworker's Delight, which is relatively near me, and I suppose if I could get there on a more regular basis, which I just can't, that certainly has I think there definitely are people that has become quite a place to just be and hang out regularly. So this store wasn't ever that kind of place, but it was a kind of place that when I walked in, the owners knew me, and they were always excited to see what I was working on. And, if I was coming to look for a thread, or if I was ready for framing, I was always excited to be bringing something. It was about, I could say this now, they were my people in a little way. And there were a few people that I could remember meeting there every now and then. They had a once a year Super Bowl Sunday party day, like a lot of stitching stores do. But I learned so much just from what they had at the store. My eyes were open to a lot of things that I learned from having that place there. Different thread lines, different things. And so I've been thinking about that store a lot. Okay, now I've gotten off track. So when I walked into the library and when I saw this stuff, the town that this is in, I knew, that little piece that's in the back of your head, this is the town that husband and wife lived in. This must have been their leftover stuff that they had been keeping in some storage somewhere for 7 or so years. And for whatever reason, they said, time to let it go. All new patterns, no storage smell. I don't know. They probably just kept it in their house. I don't know. There was no storage smell at all. So I took quite a lot. And then I really wanted to make sure that I shared the wealth in the stitching world. So I think that's important. I wanted, because when I talked to the librarians, they said the stuff had been out for about 2 weeks. Very few people had come and taken a couple of things. And there was this panic of, oh my God, are they just going to throw it all in the dumpster? I saw when I posted in all the places I could and I saw the responses, I'm just relieved to know that it's all out there. Some people posted, so this is Sunday, the library's closed on Sunday, so I posted on Friday night. It seems like it was quite busy there on Saturday. I do want to try and stop over there tomorrow on Monday to see and talk to them and say, yeah, I told you guys I was going to post about it. Yeah, that's why you were crazed by a whole bunch of people and phone calls on Saturday. And we'll see if there's anything there. I really like to think that a lot of it went to good homes and to people who will care about it and do what they want with it. So where I'm going with all of this is that I took home a lot of the good stuff, a lot of the, again, 2010, so we're not talking about the most recent designers and patterns. And yes, there was a lot of 80s and 90s and leisure arts and that kind of stuff. But what I took was the ones that I knew of names of things that I know are of interest in this stitching world. And so what I'm going to do is sell them. I have probably upwards of 175 charts that I would like to sell. And this is my plan and my thought. I'm going to start by trying to do it through a video to you guys, to the Flosstube community, and offer it this way for you to take whatever you want from it. And then whatever's left, I'll go through some. I'm not going to use my Etsy store. It's not worth the hassle of making the listings. And no. I'll go through some other selling sites if I need to. I want to offer to you all, and I also want you to understand that as I thought about this, a lot of the money that is going to come from this is really going to go to supporting me as a designer. There are times where I think about books that I would like, or I'm doing some research and I think about a book and I'm thinking, no, I do not need to buy that book. It would be nice if I had a little fund that I could justify, yeah, I am going to buy that book. The program that I use for designing for cross stitch, I had originally purchased because I had sold some stuff on Stash Unload. And I've just always been proud of myself that like I came up with that idea. I'm going to sell some stuff so that I could purchase a program. And it's great, perfectly fine for what I'm doing with cross stitch. But it is not so fine for doing canvas work things. And I haven't even allowed myself to do research into what other programs are out there because I couldn't justify buying anything. But wouldn't it be nice to say, I have this little fund now and this is something I'm going to do with it. So that's my plan. What I'm going to do is I need to sort through and organize and price everything. And I'm going to make a video that is going to show you what I have and how to say I need to work on the logistics of it. That video, it will not be any earlier than next weekend, and it might not even be next weekend. So, you know, set your it'll be the next video I do. Set your notifications if you want. If you're really intrigued to know what I've got and are interested in purchasing from me, set your notifications. And like I said, it will be no earlier than a week from now, and maybe not in, we'll see. I'm glad to be able to share with you all, and I like the thought that you all would be supporting me if you took some of this. So, there's been a lot of the stitching world in my world this week, which has been really great and much needed, separate from daytime life and sort of evening life in that way. I'm going to move on to what I've been stitching, although it doesn't feel like it's been much stitching. It's just been, it's just been the way life is. But I have been working on designs, and what I'm actually going to end up doing is giving you a little bit of previews of where I'm going. It's October 1st, so past September 30th. No, I don't have designs ready to be out yet, but I'm working on them. So I had posted on definitely on Instagram. Did I put these on Stitch Mania also? I think I did. So I found, it was originally at Walmart. I found one thing, and I was like, that's really cool. I was in Walmart just to buy stuff, you know, cleaning supplies and everything, and I happened to be walking by the very small craft aisle that Walmart has, and I just poked my head down the, you know, that aisle, and I saw a few of these items that are made for cross stitching that I just was intrigued by. And one of them was a little wooden circle, comes with a stand. And I just thought, what a neat little piece. How, just to do something different with a piece of stitching. It does, it came with 3 patterns, which of course, whatever. I liked the idea of it. And then I was, of course, interested to look up the company that made this. Discovered online that they had a number of other products. Walmart, my Walmart just had, I can't even tell you, they had a couple of other things. I can't tell you what else they had. Oh, no, wait, no, sorry, telling the story wrong. They did, sorry, they had 2, I bought 2 things from them. They had this, and they had a package of 6 cards. 3 of them are circles, or spaces of circles to do patterns, and 3 of them are hearts. And white, brown, and black cards. And 6 cards for, it was either $3 or $4. That's a good deal. This thing, I think, was $3. And again, it was this idea of, I'm intrigued to find new ways to use stitch, or to show off stitching. I brought them home and okay, what can I do with them now? Well, realized that I already have in the works some designs. So you're getting a little preview of one of the designs that will be coming out is actually like 3 in 1. The calendar kids, which I did my last set, more than one person has thanked me and appreciated the idea that they got all 12 squares in one pattern. That, you know, and I like that kind of thing too. So I'm going to have a design, and I think it's just going to be something like 3 lacy squares or something like that. And these are 2 of them. I didn't print out the 3rd one. But what I realized is the center, so if I'll do this one first, because I did this one first. If you look at the center of this, I adapted that, and I used the beautiful variegated thread, which, I mean, this just called for using variegated thread that Ingeborg sent me that I showed in my last video. I mean, I had to adjust the edges just a little bit from the pattern that I'd already created. And I just love the way it looks. It's just using the center part of a design. And then I used one of the circles, and I created, with the other thread she sent, from the center of this one, literally it's just this center part. It's all that would fit on the card. And then I did a back stitch around the edge just because it needed something around that edge there. And of course, you know, you get the envelopes with the cards. I liked it. When I went on the company's website, it's called threebirdsdesign.com. I'll put a link below. It said, apparently, I think you can buy the products through their website, but they also are sold in Joann's, AC Moore. You'd have to go to the website. maybe it said Hobby Lobby, and maybe it said some other stores that I didn't recognize. It didn't say Walmart, even though I had originally bought these 2 items in Walmart. I had the opportunity, because I was in a crappy drive one night and had to take a detour and ended up at the Super Joann's. Do you guys have those? There's some Joann's that are like, I call it Super Joann's. That is not what Joann's calls it. It's got another name. It's a giant Joann's. Anyway, because I had to take a detour that night, I ended up being right near the Super Joann's, and I was like, I need a break. I'm going to go in, and sure enough, they had, that's a preview of something else. Don't look at that. They had a whole display of, I mean, I don't know if it was everything on that website, but it probably was. And again, I was looking for what's unique, what's different. That would make for a different way to use cross stitch. The other items I purchased, I don't currently have a design or a plan of what I'm going to do with them, but I hope to come up with it. A journal that needs a good rectangle, and this is a good amount of space, so a good design could go there. And these all come with a pattern. I would never use it. I like the idea of using my patterns to do. So a journal, a hardcover journal, a little soft journal, good rectangular design can fit on here, and leather bracelet. I feel like, is it DMC that you see ads for, that they're making something like this as well? But all of these were inexpensive. A few, I think the hard journal was maybe $10, but you know, you go to Joann's, you bring your coupons, you know, 40% off the most expensive item, or whatever it was that I had. So, and of course, I'm not using their, you know, I will, these are for future ideas. So it's just a fun thing to play with, and I will see what I will come up with. So again, I adopted these 2 guys because of patterns that have in the works, and we'll see what I come up with for others. So I had been stitching those, and then what happened? Oh, here we go. And then the only other thing I've been stitching on, and it's just not even done yet, is just to show you the progress. This is going to be canvas work number 3. I like it a lot. It's I love the colors of number 2, but I'm really liking the way things are, the effect of it is showing up here in number 3. This is the project that I was literally sitting there like this the whole time watching McKenna and Michelle at the store. That, you know, it was like, I just kept, I'm sure many of us have, whether we're watching Flosstube, whether we're watching television, I stitch, often the television is on, and I'm not looking, I'm listening. And there's certain shows where I know how to look up and down, and it works. And maybe it's because just over years of doing that, I don't even watch shows that I know take too much involvement. Because I don't want to, because I know what I want to be doing. I don't know. But it was just so funny the way I had needle poised in midair for the longest time. Anyway, that will get finished up, and the directions and stitch diagrams and so on will need to get worked on. That's all I've been stitching on, which is not a lot. Okay, another thing that I have been, I'm not doing a good job at moving stuff out of the way today. Okay, another design that I'm working on is a Blackwork pattern. The other Blackwork that I worked on, a pattern that I came out with earlier in the summer, there was lots of positive response to it. I have wanted to come back to one. I'm working on one right now. It's, well, I'll wait to show you when it's done, what it's based on and everything. But it's just made me tune in a little bit more. I feel like there's been a couple of people recently that I've seen, and I think Ingeborg recently showed, or maybe it's just on Instagram, that was working on her big Blackwork piece. It was that freebie piece that I know other people have worked on, and I can't remember its name. But there were two people in particular, Michelle Bendy Stitchy, one of them, and somebody else who were recently doing small Blackwork things, not worked in black thread. That's the theme here, people. Because it's just a great thing to remember. If you've never done Blackwork, or you are turned off by just using black thread, don't be. Blackwork style and its historical pieces, sure. It's straight lines, and I think there's a number of people who've said, there's somebody in a Flosstube that made the comment of, I hate doing back stitching, but Blackwork I like, because yeah, Blackwork is straight stitches like back stitching, but it's different. Anyway, I wanted to take out a Blackwork. So I've shown you some Blackwork pieces, the two big ones that I've done in the past. I showed them some videos ago. And I've had this one on my list to show you. And it's a rare case of a piece that I just didn't finish. And I know why. Well, let me show it to you. So it's I've talked about ANG, American Needlepoint Guild, in the past. They offer classes, like cyber classes, and like a few different ways of doing them. But one way is not even an online class. It's just basically buy a, oh my God, I feel like my brain isn't working well. Buy a pattern that is a teaching piece, but there's really no interaction with a teacher or anything like that. It's just supposed to be you will learn stuff from this pattern. They call it workshop by mail. It's just buy a pattern, but it's more than just a pattern. It's supposed to be a teaching piece. So I'll show you what I have here. Now this is all DMC floss. It's not variegated. Part of the teaching element of this was about the shading aspects of doing Blackwork. What you do when you're trying to get the effect within a leaf of a flower, or a petal of a flower, that you get more dense in the pattern, as well as use a darker shade of the thread. And then as you want to you go lighter in both the color as well as less dense of the pattern. Like you start eliminating some of the parts of the pattern, if that makes any sense. So what is not done? This is all the Blackwork of the piece. Obviously not done in black, done in shades of green and rose. And I really liked the effect. It's also an interesting case of a designer who has such a distinct style, because when she comes out with pieces, it's a distinct style. So the pattern, so the white areas that I have not done yet is pulled thread work. So supposed to be done in white, but it's pulled thread stitches. And I know in a photograph, like, it's not going to show up very well. And I know that if I do it and could put like a dark color background behind it, you would get more. If you don't know what pulled thread work is, you get a better sense. It's got a great, neat texture to it. So I finished all the Blackwork. And then I remembered that my memory of why I stopped is I had a big project that I was anxious to get started on. It was the Antioch Mosaic project. And I was too anxious to get started on something that I really wanted to work on. And it was a case, this was 3 years ago, that I just said, I'll come back to this at some point. And I will at some point. I mean, I've done some pulled thread work before, but I would like to finish it off. And I did, like the little student here, I did go through the exercises that was suggested at the beginning. So yeah, I did treat it like a course and did some of the practice parts to it. But I bring it out now in the spirit that, number one, I'm working on Blackwork design, in the spirit that letting everyone know that Blackwork does not need to be black. Blackwork does not need to be completely geometrical, that you can use Blackwork, that the filling patterns are geometrical, and my design is not going to be like this. My design is very geometrical, but you can use Blackwork to do something that is not geometrical, but that you can just combine techniques in a unique way. So there you go. Oh, the design, I should be clear. The design is called Peonies by Carol Algie Higginbotham. And I don't know if she, I don't think she publishes any patterns. I think she's a teacher, and she like teaches at workshops and teaches at seminars and puts out, like cyber classes and stuff like that. I don't think she does, commercial patterns. So there's a bit about Blackwork. Okay. Told you that you were getting some pieces about some insights into some designing pieces I'm working on. So my next little insight. So inspired by so many of you talking about samplers recently, I am trying to work on designing a sampler with my own 2017 twist on it, my own inspired by Flosstube twist on it. I'm hoping it will work out okay, and either it will or it won't. Either you all will be amused by what I did or not. We'll see. As a part of that, I've been doing some reading and researching on samplers, and in particular going through, and so I just wanted to share with you, I don't have a stitch piece to hold up, but I wanted to share with you some stuff about samplers. And Lori, Mischievous Stitches, part of this is for you, but plenty of others I know love samplers as well. So I, started taking out some books that I have, some of which are from exhibits. This was at a museum in New Jersey, and just to look through. So these are Schoolgirl samplers that are, some people truly love the complete and utter reproduction samplers. And I've seen some of you working on those kind. And then there's others of you that seem to love the ones that have the look of that, but may not be completely reproduced from an actual sampler made by a girl at some point in history. But it is interesting to look for motifs and themes and patterns in a book like this. I mean, this was an exhibit, and these were all New Jersey. Oh, I had notes. This was a New Jersey museum, a New Jersey exhibit. I don't know when that was. This was at the Connecticut Historical Society a few years back. This was more than just samplers. This was a lot of stuff, but there's a fair number of samplers in here as well. You know what's happened? Lori started showing that she's been buying a lot of sampler books, and I started getting jealous. And I love to look at these kind of books. But so I've been taking out the books that I already own, and given that I haven't looked at them in a long time, that satisfies me because I just haven't looked at them in a long time, and it's a way that I can do my own research with things that I already own and just be inspired by some of the stuff that I can see in here. I have this book, which is interesting, Making Samplers. It's not, it's not a, it's interesting how they've divided categories. And so they've got these categories of, because part of my thinking is what makes something a sampler? What will make a needleworker look at that pattern and call it a sampler, and that pattern and say not a sampler? I mean, there's some things that are clear and some things that are not so clear. So, but the way they divided this, 17th century band samplers, so band samplers, 18th century inscriptions, whitework samplers, house and cross stitch. You can't see this because of the glare. I'm sorry. Oh, whatever. It doesn't matter. You don't need to see the contents. So this book is a combination of, they show you an old, let me give you an example. Here we go. Rural life and a family tree, stitched building motifs. So they show you an old piece, and these are not particularly beautiful ones. These are not ones that I think would make it into a museum. Oh, sorry, here's the whole thing. Or what do I know? This was 1784. Sure enough, it might be in a museum. They're not, to me, as beautiful as some of the ones I saw in these exhibit books. And then they have a project that they say is inspired by, not a reproduction, but inspired by what you just saw on the previous page. So there's a family tree and a house one. They talk about darning samplers. If you have ever heard that term, when Schoolgirl, like the whole idea of Schoolgirl samplers, beyond teaching schoolgirls, to do their alphabet, there was also, at some places, they needed to learn the darning stitches, to mend clothes or linens. And so they would learn these different stitches and then put it in a nice looking thing. So this is made during the late 18th century. This was a very decorative darning sampler, as it says. And then the project they've created looks kind of cheesy to me, but maybe that's just because of the colors they chose to put on it. So, an interesting book. But the book I really wanted to share with all of you is wondering how many of you heard about, or have heard since it happened, the auction of Schoolgirl samplers that happened in 2012. And I bring this up because for those of you that are interested, Lori and others, I discovered there's some really cool things online that you might be interested in following up with. So, Betty Ring was an incredible scholar of all of this, of the world of Schoolgirl samplers. And I didn't know any of this until before this sale. The needlework blogs and groups and whatever that I belonged to sort of lit up with the fact that Sotheby's was selling off. My memory is she was downhill. She might have even passed away before the sale happened. She had suffered from Alzheimer's. It was, if she had not quite passed away, she wasn't aware of anything. But it was her desire that it was a planned out thing many years in advance, what would happen to her collection. So, but like the needlework world lit up about this because apparently it was the first time Sotheby's was taking pre-orders for a catalog. All right, I know nothing about the high-end auction world. I know nothing about the low-end auction world. But I guess when there's an auction at one of these places, they put out these catalogs, and then you can buy them if you go there. You could even call up and order one. This was the first time Sotheby's took pre-orders because somehow they knew that this was going to be a book that was going to be wanted. Because I did not pre-order it, I didn't know what people were so excited about. But anyway, it is just filled. I mean, these are apparently the cream of the crop, the top beautiful things that Betty Ring own. All categories, all places, all everything. There's a little bit about them. I mean, just basics. There's who owned it, who stitched it, where it came from, what exhibits it was part of, what its estimated value was. So where I live in New Jersey, I'm not a big city person, but I will go into New York City when it's worth going to. People said, if you live anywhere near New York City, you have to go, because they had them on display for a couple of weeks before the sale. So yeah, I had to go because the needlework world told me I had to go. And I mean, it was very cool to see all of them. I mean, it was in a lot of ways no different than going to one of these other exhibits. From my perspective, it was interesting to eavesdrop on a couple of conversations of dealers talking to clearly high-end collectors. But it was interesting. And then Sotheby's did a live feed. You could follow the live feed of the auction. Okay, this is the one where I have my note, number 616. Yep, number 616. Check it out, people. This one sold for $1,070,500. Now, what specific details made it so wanted? Was it just two people going back and forth over it? What made this one so wanted? And plenty of these, we're talking like 5 digits. Lots of them. There's I'm trying to see if I'm seeing 122,000 for another. There's maybe a handful that were over 100,000. Ooh, 503 was 314,000. Let's look at that one. I don't know enough about that world of value. I watched the Antiques Roadshow. I learned so much from the Antiques Roadshow. And I suppose this is 503. It went for 314,000. So if you just like looking at samplers, sorry, I'm not in the right order of this story. What Sotheby's also did, Betty Ring published 2 or 3 books that are long out of print. Betty Ring Sotheby's put them online. They had permission from the family to put them online. And I feel like vaguely it was said they would only be online for a period of time. Before doing this Flosstube, I went to check. They're still there. So if you're interested in just learning more about samplers, about her samplers, about the background, I'm going to put the link below. You might be interested in going to see it. And I'm pretty sure in what I'll link below, you'll be able to see, this was my list that I printed out to keep with this book of how much, I also have this, which is what everything was estimated. Well, everything's estimated is also in here. What everything was estimated for and how much they sold for. And there were some pieces that didn't sell. Sale total, including buyer's premium, was $4,389,503. It was the biggest needlework sale ever. I mean, nothing like this had ever happened before. So for all you sampler lovers out there, I don't think any of us ever think about the money involved. But for the people out there that are the collectors, which literally may not be in any way the same people that are needleworkers, you just might, it just might be interesting to get a peek into that world. And I wouldn't have known anything about it if it wasn't for being a part of, various internet sites and groups that have been promoting and talking about this sale when it happened. So I will link the I will find the Sotheby's website that has the details on this, so that you can read Betty Ring's books, and I believe also see the details from the sale. You may be able to see the pictures? Don't quote me on that. I don't remember. Okay. Samplers. Done. You want to talk about lace? Yeah. I haven't been working on my own lace projects, but I wanted to pick out a couple of lace things just to share with you. So, because I have things that I have some lace pieces I'm looking at right now that are on the wall, and one that I took down to share with you, but I have a little guy right here that I wanted to share. Not at the school where I am now, but at another school I know of. So maybe some of you are familiar. There is a project, and I don't know who sponsors it, and maybe there's more than one across the country, of getting school kids involved in butterflies, monarch butterflies, and kids, I don't know exactly how it works, but they I don't know what gets sent to them. I don't know the life cycle of a butterfly off the top of my head. They get sent the cocoons, and they're just supposed to be kept safe. And then when they hatch, but that doesn't feel like the right verb, they then get released. Anyway, there was a science teacher that I know of who did a whole big thing with butterflies and the life cycle and that. And I know at least at that school they did it right in September, like beginning of the year kind of stuff. I don't know if that's because that's the right time of the year for the butterflies to do it, or if that's because that's just what worked and it actually goes on at very different times of the years. But because of this time of year, I was thinking about it, and so I wanted to share with you all I'm looking for my own. I have my thing out. I'm sorry. I should have here. Use this. So this is needle lace. Now I have done very little needle lace, which is to say, I have some books. I've read and played around to frustration level, and then I took a one-day class a couple years ago and created this, and I loved it. And I loved what I learned from that class and feel like I could do more with it. So many projects, so little time. But needle lace is made with a needle, not with bobbins. And you would say that there's different so what's used in orange here is a different stitch than what's used in the black there. Obviously, you could see it's more open. There's wire. This is, there's wire around the edge that then you stitch over it. So, although it was black wire, you wouldn't necessarily see it. But I wanted to share with you my little piece of needle lace. But also because it just reminds me of the butterflies that I know at least some science teachers work with some, maybe it's National Geographic, no, that doesn't sound right, some science program just to help in the cycle of you know what I'm talking about, people. Help get more butterflies in the world because they do the right things for nature. And then the other lace that I wanted to share with you was a piece that I have hanging on the wall, so I took it off. And as I was taking it off, I was thinking, yeah, this was a piece that I had that framing store framed for me. Because I remember the whole conversation. They didn't know what to do about, because they didn't want to lace it. I ended up doing the pins. I did a pin stretch of it myself. They gave me the board and I did it because they weren't sure how. Anyway, so this is a case of a lace pattern that I had found in a book and didn't have the knowledge and the skills for, but held on to the pattern for a few years until it felt like the right time. I've mentioned before about going to a craft school in Vermont for a number of summers, and this was a project that I started and I had that pattern. And remember the year that I, talking to the teacher ahead of time, what do you want to work on this summer? And I said, I want to lace the world. And she said, yeah. And I said, and the problem was I didn't have a pillow to do it, but made it work. So this is Lace World. Now, anyone who sees this, like hanging on my wall, you know, you recognize it as a world map, and then you do that momentary, huh? These things hanging out in the ocean, okay, those are bobbins. I don't have one in easy reach of my hands right now, but think about the bobbins that I've shown you in my previous videos. And so in some ways it's kind of like a sampler of, that's crooked, but it's a sampler of lace things. And it's not particularly designed, I mean, I didn't have the ability to truly change the pattern very well. Like this line right here bothered me, you know, Asia isn't broken up like that. But it was a case of, when working with people that care about what you're doing. That first summer, I was working on it at the lace. Here we go. Here's a bobbin. So here's a bobbin, and you get a sense how it's like this. So the first summer, I had got the border started, and that was just, you know, work on it as I needed to. And I started working on North America, and I was I remember like working my way down here. And it was Friday afternoon, and some people already started packing up. But I got to this point, and I said, I've reached the bottom of South America. And everyone just cheered for me, and it was great. And then I worked on it, and I finished it, and I got it framed. And to bring it back the following year, and it was mostly the same people that went to this class one year after the next, they were just so excited to see it. I've seen a few other people, this pattern is known in the lace world. I've seen a few other people who have done it. I mean, I know I did something different with Australia. I forget what was, there's something funky going on there that I changed. So, and I forget that until I see someone else who's done it. But I just wanted to share with you a piece of lace that, I don't know, it hangs on my wall. So the last thing that I have on my list, so I think about so many floss tubers are so, your crafty skills are not limited to cross stitching or stitching. People talk about knitting, people talk about quilting, other things. And I've started to wonder how many, if there are those of you that make Halloween costumes, because we're getting to that time of year. And I did have this moment of thinking, oh, I'll just go search for, you know, floss tubes from like 12 months ago and see if anyone's talking about it. And then I thought, no, I don't have time to watch. I barely am watching the floss tubes that I want to watch that are current. I'm not going to go searching for old ones. I'll just wait and see if people are going to start talking about this, or if not, maybe I'll be the first. Just one of the things that has taken up a little bit of my time, and I'm not saying that in a resentful way, because I enjoy doing it. Yes, I want to spend more time designing and stitching, less time doing schoolwork. You know, I have quizzes sitting downstairs that I need to grade, and I was telling myself that I wasn't going to record this floss tube until I finished them, and I just couldn't make myself do it. So then I got about halfway through, and I just had enough. So I made this deal with myself that I could stop, I could do the floss tube, do the video, and then I'm going to have a little race. Could I finish grading the quizzes in the time it takes all of this to get uploaded? I don't know. And I don't know if that's going to be the motivation I need, but I need something like that. So anyway, where was I? So one of the things that I've been doing a little bit here and there is about Halloween costumes. I have four nephews and a niece. I have two sisters. One sister, I'm the middle child. Yeah, I'm always the middle child. My older sister has three boys, ages 13, 9, and 6. My younger sister has my niece, who's 5.5. She is not 5. She's 5.5. And her little brother is 2. And it started 13 years ago. So the big guy, who literally just turned 13 this past week, my sister, at the time, they were living in Atlanta, and she worked for a pretty big company, and she was on maternity leave, and he was born near the end of September, and they had a very huge, big family Halloween, bring your kids all dressed up, go trick-or-treating, outdoors, Atlanta, kind of thing. And for her, that was going to be the big bring the baby and show him off kind of event, and she wanted the perfect Halloween costume for him. And she had this idea of what she wanted. She wanted to dress him up as a crayon, and she couldn't find any baby crayon costumes. And I said, I'll make him one. And I did. And this is the only picture I have. So again, this guy is now 13, but he was about he was probably about 3 weeks old when I mailed this to her. So I made that, I took a crayon and just figured it out. And that started a little trend. So for his first few years, I made Halloween costumes. The last time I did a Halloween costume in that family, when he was 4, and his younger brother was 5 months, it kind of stopped there. I think many of us who make gifts have stories of when things are appreciated and when things are not. It was fine. A few years later, when my other sister had my niece, Abby, I did not offer, but when I was asked, I decided, yeah, I'd be happy to do it. So Abby is a December baby. So when Halloween came around, she was 10 months old. So that's very different from a nearly newborn. But my sister decided she wanted, if her big cousin was a blue crayon for his first Halloween, she should be a pink crayon. So this was the pink crayon costume that I made when she was about 10 months old. And this was a case of, it was appreciated, and it was loved, and it was thoughtful and planned out, and it's been something I've been doing every year since. And now Abby, is old enough that she so looks forward to and wants to plan with me in the summer. What am I going to be for Halloween? And last summer we got to go shopping together for the fabric, and I treasure that. That's worth it. So I was given this gift 2 years ago, so you can see. So when she was, a little bit less than 2, it was Minnie Mouse. So I just made the dress and the bloomers for her. She went with Belle. I actually have a better picture, a dusty picture. She wanted to be Belle, so this is like right before being 3. And my sister told me at the time the biggest thing she got from other moms, so maybe there's some moms out there that could appreciate this. And again, all right, they live in Connecticut, so that's important to understand this, that the other mom said to her, "Where did you get a Disney princess dress with long sleeves?" Halloween, end of October, it could be chilly. I used this one. I used a Disney pattern to make, and it was a long sleeves. But if you go buy any Disney brand dress, yeah, it's just like a little cap sleeve kind of thing. So I got big kudos for doing sleeves on that dress. And then the following year, by the time she had a little baby brother, she decided she wanted to be Snow White and he could be one of the dwarfs. And the first thought is that he would be Dopey, because Dopey was the only one without a beard. My sister vetoed the idea. She did not want him to be Dopey. We compromised on Sleepy because my sister he's a late July baby. He was like exactly 3 months old. So you could see on this side, here she is in her Snow White costume, and there is Sleepy. And he's 3 months there. And then last year, so that was 2 years ago, last year, she's in the princess phase. She wanted to be Rapunzel. And this is when she got to go shopping with me for the fabric. This is when I was still working on the dress, so you could see it was shortened. And I just loved this moment because I was there and she was like looking herself in like the reflection of the fireplace, and she just loved that dress. And I just loved seeing how much she loved it. And the hair, she helped me make the hair. It was just a big thing of yarn and to braid it like that. And then my sister had, my sister brought down all her previous costumes and they were laid out there. And again, it's about the appreciation, which meant a lot to me. Now, you got to think, who goes with Rapunzel? I didn't know this. I had to be taught this. Rapunzel has a little green chameleon friend named Pascal. So her little brother, who still wasn't walking then, so, you know, he didn't do much, but he was Pascal, and I made that for him. So this year, and my sister told her this might be the last year that she could decide for her brother, because by next year he'll be 3 and he might have his own opinion. But I was actually really pleased when she decided to break away from the Disney princess, and she went with a pretty cool idea. She decided to be Poppy and Branch from Trolls. I had to look this up. I did not know Poppy and Branch. I do now. And I'm showing this now because there's a good chance by the next time I do a video, even though these are mostly done, that I will be going up there in a few weeks and giving them to them, and I won't be able to show the finished thing. So you'd have to look up an image of Poppy and Branch to get it completely. But Poppy wears a blue dress with this light blue decoration at the bottom. You can see it's still pinned on because I need to go buy light blue thread because I discovered today I don't have light blue thread. And Abby is very big into having a wig, so I just made this out of tulle and yarn. Poppy has pink hair, so I need to fix it up. And she'll just wear a shirt and tights underneath it. And Branch, so little shorts and a vest. So you could look up pictures yourself and decide how close I've come to. And at some point, I'm sure I'll get pictures from them, for my sister, with them all dressed up. But it's sweet when I know it's appreciated. It's taken a little bit of my stitching time, my designing time away, but I'm almost done with that, and check that off and move back to other things. Thank you as always for being with me, folks. It makes such a difference in my world. I so love this stitching community. I love the way it takes me away from things that are more difficult in my world. I am looking forward to sharing the tons of patterns that I have with you all, so be on the lookout for a video coming at some point where I can show you more with that. Thank you always for the comments, for the support, for all the cheering on. Till next time.